Welcome back to Pro Tips and Conversation. I'm your host, AC Pilot Zero. Today I'm going to be doing a build showcase of what I have on Dark Souls Remastered. It is my hope that this showcase will inspire you or give you some ideas or some clarification. I just hope it'll be helpful to you in some way. So I'm going to start at the lowest level I have and work my way up. So what I've got is, I've got builds that are staggered 10 levels apart, right? Going all the way up to 70 mainly. The thing is, here's what you got to remember about DSR. You have to. Okay, so if you're brand new to making builds for multiplayer, and you don't understand, why would someone have a build that's only level 30, or 40, or 11? Let's start that real quick. So, a lot of people who are new to the game and they're just playing, right? They just play a character, they don't stop leveling up, and they don't understand why you would ever stop leveling up. Well, here's the reason. For the purpose of co-op and invasion, you want to pick a fixed level to stay at so that you can always be ready to co-op at a certain spot, right? Like level 11, you're going to co-op in Berg, Undead Berg, right? Level 20, you're going to do the Parish, because that's the level that you're going to be seeing those people at. So if you want to have builds that are like ready to rock at a certain place, if you love Parish, you always want to co-op or invade in Parish, you're going to want a level 20 for that. And you're going to have to also have a weapon upgrade that will let you connect with people that have that same level. It's because this game not only has level matchmaking, but weapon matchmaking. So the short answer is, why would you have a build only at a certain level and stop there? The answer is matchmaking. If you keep going up and up and up, eventually you're going to not be able to connect with anyone. Your multiplayer sessions will get more and more rare. You won't be able to find people to invade or to get summoned by or what have you, right? So the PvP meta level, it's agreed upon that it's like 120. Some people say 125. But I feel like when 125 got implemented, people just started thinking like, well, if it's not a fixed level, if it can be shifted, then I'm gonna do whatever I want. Which is why sometimes you see builds that are like 130, 140, 150 even, because a 150 can connect to a 125. So I feel like that change kind of got things a little messy. But if you want to be stalwart old school, stick with 120. That is the most common dueling meta level. For co-op though, and random invasion, you need to be a lot less. Consider that most people complete the game around level 80. Like, that's their end game level. Unless they've been grinding a lot for some reason. So you don't want to have, for random invasion or random co-op, you don't want to have a build any higher than that, or you're not going to find anyone. And also remember, if you're going 80, then you're looking at co-oping and invading only at Kiln, or like after the Lord Vessel, maybe Anorlando if you're lucky. That's a bit high. You could also do maybe, what's the name of the Painted World, right? Or any of the Lord Soul areas is like 80. So you're going to be stuck with those spots though. So if you're level 80, like, you couldn't co-op at Parish, right, for example. Which is why, if you want to just kind of do all the areas of the game, you're going to need builds that have different levels. So I hope that explained the purpose of having all these different level builds, and let's get on with the showcase. So some of these are optimized, some of them are more for fun, but I'm going to explain all of them because hopefully they will inspire you, maybe give you some cool ideas. This is my level 11 build that I use strictly at Berg, because good luck getting summoned anywhere else. You'd be too small. So at this level, you're only looking at a maximum of +5 regular Titanite weapons. That's a very important distinction, because you might say to yourself, oh, I can upgrade my Black Knight sword to +5. No, you can't, because a Black Knight sword at +5 counts as a +15 regular weapon. So this is only for regular Titanite. Stuff that uses Titanite shards, up to +5. The reason being, a new player who counts as +0 is going to be able to connect with up to +5, and additionally, anything that upgrades with non-Titanite shards, like Twinkling Titanite, Demon Titanite, those count as +5 by default. So like this Jagged Ghost Blade, which upgrades with Twinkling, counts as being a +5 normal weapon. So, this Jagged Ghost Blade is worth the same as this +5 shield, okay, as far as weapon tier goes. You can look that information up on your own if you don't believe me or you want further clarification. But like, Longswords, White-Hander, Winged Spear, Titanite Shard, maximum +5. Black Knight Sword, maximum +0, because it counts as +5, okay? That might be a little confusing. Again, look it up. So what does this build have? Grass Crest Shield for stamina. I also have Dragon Crest Shield. And in fact, I could even go get just the Crest Shield that resists magic if I wanted to. The reason I didn't is because I feel like the only reason you would use a Crest Shield this low is to maybe absorb a Dark Bead. But it's my thinking that a Dark Bead is going to blast through the stability of this shield when it's unupgraded. So I don't think it's worth it, so you're better off just dodging. However, it will absorb a Combustion or a Black Flame, at least one before you get your guard broken, which gives you enough time to roll away if they start spamming it on you. The reason I picked this knife, pretty good high base damage, but mainly the bleed. Bleed's pretty effective at this level because most people will have a lower bleed resist because they're a lower level. It's also very quick, and the other reason I picked it, it has this hilarious murder animation that I thought, you know, a lot of low-level players, maybe if they'd never seen that before, they would think that was pretty funny. So, I like to kind of entertain a little bit, you know, and people at the Berg, a lot of times you're going to meet a new player. I mean, well, these days, it's 50-50. Sometimes you meet new players, sometimes you don't. But a lot of higher-up players will just skip the Berg entirely, like veterans and stuff, you know, because they know they don't need to do it. So that increases your odds of meeting a new player here. But, like, they've probably never seen anything like this. So if you come in here with weird stuff like a dragon head, you know, and you start breathing fire, they're going to be pretty wowed by that. Or you come in with an egg head, they'll be like, what the hell is that, you know? So, at this stage, though, most people will not be using big weapons because they don't have the weight or the stats to use it, because you're going to be level 11 at most. Level 11 lets you connect to a level 1. Again, because the way matchmaking works, it goes up or down 10 levels plus 10%. So if someone rolls Pyromancy, and for some reason they didn't level up, so they're level 1, then they can connect with a level 11. If you don't care about playing with level 1s, because it's a little unrealistic, like who would not level up their Pyromancy unless they're only doing an SL1 run. And this character can help in an SL1 run just in case, so it's nice to have. But you might want to look at more like SL15 is probably a better idea if you need more stats, you know. Right, so you're going to only need a minimal amount of poise here, probably no more than like 35 to be able to poise through, because you're looking at like straight swords really. You know, like a long sword, you're going to see a lot of rapiers at this level because of the high backstab damage and the low requirements. But it's going to be light weapons, so you're not going to need a terrible amount of poise, which means what's very useful here is dodging. So, the Dark Wood Grain Ring I highly recommend for level 11. Very good, unless you have some other ring that you need. Can't go wrong with Favor and Protection, you know, every little bit helps. Give you a little more HP, stamina, carry weight. It's pretty much relevant at any level, even though it's percentage based, and like, you might consider that my HP is 818, and without the ring I might have like 780, something like that. So it's not a huge boost. It's not, you know, the higher your stats are, the higher the percentage gain is going to be. So at low level you might think, it's not really worth it. So honestly, I don't think it's vital. But the thing is, if you don't want to get one shot by a backstab, because there's a lot of Hornet Stabbers at this level, that's another option you might want to try. Instead of, you know, the Dark Wood Grain, you try Hornet. If you're like an invader, that's probably a better idea for you. But yeah, so if you want to survive the big backstab at this stage, you're going to need all the HP you can cram in. So really, you want to be looking at putting all the points in vitality that you can at this level. Though you will see a lot of Dark Bead guys who have like, you know, just enough intelligence to pull it off and attunement, and then maybe if they have any points left over, vitality. But they're going to have a lower vitality if you go magic at this level. So what can this build do? It can breathe fire, and I am +3 in the Covenant, which takes 80 scales, which is going to be kind of a pain in the ass to grind at this level, unless you're getting them traded to you. But that makes the fire pretty decent. Hits for like 100 damage, which is painful at this level for sure, because, you know, 800 HP. Maybe you could get up to 900 if you put nothing but Vitality. But still, you're not looking at much more than that, even with Mask of the Mother on. Right, she's got the Ninja Roll, she's got 33 Poise, she's got this knife that hits for 163 and causes bleed, and it's pretty quick. You know, two-handed curved sword, very quick movesets. He can bleed out, and look how many attacks I can get, even with this meager amount of stamina. That's a lot. I could probably bleed someone in one combo. So that's what this build is all about here. So it's got the amusing factor of the, oh my god, it's a naked lady with a dragon head who has a murder knife, you know. It's got a ranged attack. Having a ranged attack is always a good option. And it doesn't cost me any weight either. And I have the bleed effect. You know, so all these things combined, I mean, against an invader it's still going to be pretty tough, because if they dark bead you, or if they combust you, or if they backstab you, you gotta watch out for that. But with Ninja Roll, at least I can get around a lot of those things. I can easily roll through dark beads with this, and then counter up with a hit or two before you're gonna have to roll again. So that's an idea for a low level build. Let's move on to the level 20. We'll work our way up all the way to the end game here, explaining each build, giving you some ideas. So I use this build for the Parish. I'm not sure where else I would take it at level 20. Maybe into the Darkroot Garden. Okay, so mostly I run this usually with Grass Crest, because I have to two-hand this sword. Don't be afraid to two-hand things. You know, once you are feeling competent, comfortable with the game, you know, and you're less reliant on blocking, you can get away with a lot of things if you two-hand your weapon, because you save a lot of points on strength. So this sword is amazing at any level, but especially at low level because it's non-scaling, which means you don't need to rely on stats to deal good damage. Kind of like using a lightning or fire weapon. Same concept, right? That's why you see it so much at low level, because it doesn't scale, so people only need minimal stats, which gives them all the free stats they need to soak up Vitality or Endurance. So this build is got a moderate amount of Vitality and Endurance, and a bit of Strength and Dex, just enough to wield this bad boy. So this thing does tremendous damage at this level. 320, I don't think that can be beat, even by like a fire. And also I can buff it, so even if there is a fire weapon that's like more damage than this at this level, it won't be once I slap on like a gold pine resin or charcoal resin, something like that. This is going to be hitting tremendously hard. Also good poise damage, also it explodes. But getting this to level 20 is not a picnic. I was using this to start with. This was my go-to weapon. I still use it now. So raw plus 0 is the equivalent of plus 5. Again, this is only a plus 5 weapon tier build, so it can connect with plus 0. Because at Parish, there's still a good chance that you're going to be meeting people who have unupgraded weapons. Fire bow also counts as plus 5. So you got to be careful with your upgrades. You don't want to go too high, otherwise you're going to push yourself out of matchmaking. So I recommend for Parish and below, you consider yourself 0 to plus 5 bracket, so you don't want to be going any higher than that, which is why this greatsword is not upgraded at all, because it counts as plus 5. Anyway, if you want to cut Calamete's tail, I had to use this halberd, because it has the vertical chop, which makes it kind of easy to catch, because his tail's high up in the air, you know. And also, it's got good reach on it, and the damage was higher than the katana. I tried using it at first, but it just was not doing it. So I looked up, like, you know, recommended, like, some tips on how to cut the tail, and one of them was like, oh yeah, try a vertical chop weapon like halberd, something like that. And I was like, oh shit, that's a good idea, because I can actually use this thing. This halberd, by the way, really fantastic weapon. It increases your resistances a little bit, as you can see there. And also, when made chaos or lightning, it has just ridiculously huge damage. I don't know why. It almost, like a chaos, so fully upgraded, A Chaos Zweihander hits for 675. This thing, fully upgraded Chaos, hits for 600. So it's less weight, it's fast, it's got the reach. The only thing it doesn't have is the poise damage, so you can't stun lock as well. But it's definitely got the damage for sure. So I use that, and always good to have a ranged attack again, just in case. The composite bow cannot be beat in terms of damage, even though it is low range. The thing is, how often are you really going to be sniping, realistically? It's more likely you're going to be shooting someone who's running away, or just kind of, you know, throwing firebombs at you. So, the fire or chaos composite bow is going to be the most damage you can get, along with fire arrows, of course. Maybe, usually my second slot I use for poison arrows, because it's pretty reliable. Yeah, so this build has huge damage. It's got enough poise to tank a greatsword hit. Because at Parish, people have a little more stats to play with. This is when you're going to start seeing stunlock builds. A lot of Black Knight weapons. Black Knight, greatsword, Black Knight, yeah, sword and greatsword. So that's a huge amount of poise damage to be taking. But at least this will let me tank one two-handed greatsword hit. If they're using, you know, the Black Knight sword, which is, or Claymore. Those are the two you're probably going to see the most. So Wolf Ring, highly recommended at this level. If not that, then Dark Wood Grain, because if you're not tanking, then you got to dodge. Recommend that you have these shields available, because at this point you might have enough endurance to actually soak up a Dark Bead and not get your guard broken. This, of course, is for any kind of pyromancy. Just having 3 pounds open for a shield slot gives you so many options. With the Grass Crest, these Crest shields, and then the Blood Shield as well, if you want to go to Painted World and pick that up, just in case somebody has a bleed build or something. It's good to have that. And these are my weapons. So if I need to inflict bleed, I need something quick, you know, got the Uchigatana there. If I need a little more damage and more reach, halberd, ranged attack, and just the big smash, which is very good for huge backstab damage. Plus that's the explosion on the R2 here, which is awesome. However, a lot of veteran invaders will recognize that and just go for backstab. So, be careful about using that, because mostly the only invaders you will see are veterans to begin with. Otherwise, they wouldn't feel comfortable invading, because invaders don't want a challenge. They are cowards by default. Don't forget that. Alright, let's move on. To level 30 territory. I have a couple of builds for this one. If you like, you know, a certain bracket, feel free to make more than one build for it. This game's about games are all about having fun. If you're not having fun, it's no longer a game, and what's the point? Okay, so again, this is Trogdor. This is more of an amusing build. He cracks me up. He's a reference to the old Strong Bad, if you were into that back in the day. So Trogdor was a man. I mean, he was a dragon man. So again, we have Fire Breath, a handy ranged attack, still relevant at this level. But once you start getting higher than 30, really the damage is not worth it at all. You can't count on it. He uses strictly dragon weapons. Well, not strictly. I have a couple of things added in here for fun. Oh, I didn't get the Drake Sword. I must have forgot it. So this guy is the next tier up, because after level 20 is when people are going to most likely have a Black Knight Sword of their own, or any kind of Black Knight weapon, or the Astora Straight Sword, or they upgraded their sword with Titanite Shards to +5, blah, blah, blah. So, after the +5 bracket is the +11 bracket. So you want to have the equivalent of a +11 weapon, which lets you connect to anything that's +5 or higher, such as a +0 Black Knight weapon, because again, that counts as 5 as far as weapon tiers are concerned. So, this lets you upgrade a non-regular Titanite weapon to +3, because every plus is worth... So this weapon starts at being worth 5, right? Every plus is worth 2. So it starts at 5, then it becomes 7, then it becomes 9, then it becomes 11 at +3. I know it's a little complicated. Look it up on your own time. And that also means that you can have a regular Titanite weapon upgraded to +11 at most, such as a shield, or an Uchigatana, or a Claymore, +11. Or like you could have lightning +1, same as +11. So there's charts you can look at. Chaos +1 also counts as +11 if you wanted to do that. Right, so what does this build do? Well, it's got dragon weapons, it's got the stone greatsword, which is always handy to have if you can manage it. Because the damage is going to be okay at this level, even though it's split. It's still pretty high, 429 damage there. At this level, that's considerable. And it has the kick-ass Tranquil Walk of Peace, which will piss people off. So it's a pretty good anti-invader weapon, you know. Demon Spear is always reliable too, because it has high base damage thanks to the lightning. You don't need to really worry about scaling with stats at these low levels, because the base damage is going to compensate for not having any stats. So this is a reliable, long reach, quick, good weapon for that. Recommend you pick it up if you can. Very low stat requirements also. It's just that with the meta being mostly backstab, the backstab damage is kind of mediocre, but if you're not relying on backstab, then it's great. So these are just big beefy damage here, 500 damage, 493, and they have the super cool R2 exploding majig. You know, this is just more of a fun, flavorful build. Trogdor the Dragon Knight. And he's mid-rolling, which is okay, you know, don't be shy about mid-rolling, you just have to get used to it a bit. It's still perfectly viable for PvE. PvP, you gotta watch out because people will capitalize on your slower speed and try and backstab you more. But of course, if you're swinging around something like this, actually it's a terrible idea. If you want to be, because what they'll do is they'll either block or poise through your slow attack and easily backstab you, right? So if you just want to be attacking someone who's fishing, you want a fast weapon. And you want to two-handed, like a two-handed hand axe or something of that speed, you know, a straight sword, anything quick that will let you turn as they circle around you. Because when you attack with this, you're stuck with your facing, you know, for a couple of seconds until you recover from your swing. Whereas if it's a quick weapon, you'll be rapidly swinging and turning to follow them, dealing damage, and in that case I'll have to back off. So, if you're using a slow weapon, you gotta always be watching out for that backstab. And that's my level 30 build number 1. My other level 30 build is tailor-made for Sense Fortress. Because I had trouble finding co-op at level 40 there. So I thought, well, let me try 10 levels lower and see what I can do. So again, anyone going into Sense Fortress should have at least a +5 weapon or a Black Knight weapon, which is going to count as +5, which will let you go to +11, which is what the invaders are going to do. Also, there's a lot of invaders here who are maxed out, because if you have +10, like you went to the depths, you upgraded your weapon to +10, or if you're halfway through Sense Fortress and you pick up the Lightning Spear, that will bump you up to being in the +10 bracket, which lets you be invaded by +15s. So, you gotta watch out for that in this place. But, I figure +11 gives me the most connectivity, because I can connect with +5 and up. I can even connect with, for some reason there's a host here with +15, I can connect to them as well. Like maybe he has a Black Knight sword +5, because you don't need embers for that, right? And if maybe he found enough twinkles to pull it off somehow. I could still connect with him. So, this build is a little more technical, because it actually, you know, has like a plan behind it. So this build is just designed to take advantage of the many ledges in Sense Fortress and knock people off of them. So, I wanted to take, you know, I wanted to put the Great Bow to work in here, which requires 20 strength, 20 dex, which is also the requirements, pretty much, of the Black Knight sword. So it seemed like a perfect combo. And the reason I chose it is the R2 attacks, even though they're slow, if you hit someone with them, it's not a knock down, but a knock back. So you can push people off ledges with this sword if you actually land the R2. Difficult, I know, but rewarding when it actually happens. And the damage is decent too. So, it's a good poise damaging weapon, you know, just straight damaging weapon. You can take on snakes with it. It's just a good solid all around weapon, and the R2s let me push people off ledges, or, you know, snakes off ledges if I just enjoy watching it happen, which I do. And then I have this as well as a backup. This scares the shit out of people, by the way. When you pull this out in Sense Fortress, people will run for cover immediately. So, because they know what's going to happen. They're going to get shot off of a ledge, or they're going to get shot backwards and then get hit by one of the scythe blades and get knocked down, you know. And so since I am probably not going to be blocking all that much, I have the grass crest on my back, right? Because I have to two-hand my bow, and it takes a ridiculous amount of stamina to shoot this thing. So having grass crest on my back is useful for that reason. Also, having the extra weight for a 3-pound shield lets you use these other utility shields to block either magic or fire. Very useful to have. So that's what this build's all about. Also, I named her Shelly because it's cute because she has an egg on her head. And again, that amusement or like awe factor that you can put on a young host that's never seen this shit before. They just be like, wow, what the hell is that even? You know, it's fun. So this is just like a fun, flavorful gimmick character that that's competent at dealing damage and also has a bit of a theme going on here with knocking people off ledges and shit. It is a mid-roll. It's got 61 poise, enough to soak up a black flame. You gotta have poise if you're gonna be using a slower weapon, because, you know, otherwise they'll just spell knock you and you'll be fucked. So, if you're going mid-roll, make sure you have poise. She is locked into wearing this ring. I cannot take it off, unfortunately. But look, I'm able to wear all this gear with a meager 12 endurance because of it. So, you don't really need a terrible amount of stamina at these low levels. You just don't. Because most things are not going to be breaking your guard, you know. And if you're not blocking, you don't need stamina to begin with. Endurance, high endurance at a low level means that you intend to block. Or you have, you know, an ultra greatsword or something. But even then, even with minimal endurance, you can usually swing an ultra greatsword at least 2 times, probably 3 times. So, I have very high amount of defense, good amount of poise, can knock shit off ledges. Pretty fun, solid, thematic build, especially with the hilarious egghead on there. For 1 more point of endurance, I could have worn a mask. I considered it, but I didn't have an egg character and I wanted to have one. Moving on to level 40. So this character is a sorcerer. I actually find her kind of boring. Maybe just because I've used the Moonlight Greatsword too much before. Right, so this build, it is min-maxed in a way that she has to two-hand this sword, but that's okay, because this sword, really, it's about, you know, the R2. And it has the best R2 when you're two-handing it, because it's that wide-angle beam. So I use her mostly in Send Fortress as well. So, you know, people are going to want to avoid getting slammed with the R2 attack of this, so that makes it difficult if they're on a bridge and I just launch it at them. Sometimes they'll panic roll and fly themselves off of a bridge. She's got enough attunement for 2 spells, which I use Crystal Soul Mass and Black Flame. Really, I think... So she's only got 40 intelligence as well, enough to hit the soft cap for damage on the Greatsword, but of course non-magic. But the thing is, I think that the Moonlight Greatsword is an excellent dueling weapon because you can have these floating over your head, applying pressure and defending you while you're trying to get into position to hit them for your big damage sword. So really, I think that the added utility of either Pursuers or Soul Mass is absolutely fantastic for a duelist, you know, because you're going to be mixing it up. Anytime these orbs fire and, you know, people are going to usually back away from you, and you just cast it again, and, you know, you get so many casts of it. I think it's amazing for dueling, and it really puts the pressure on the enemy and gets them to, like, roll around a lot. They have to play more defensively, which gives you the opportunity, you know, to roll around, try and stab them as they're panicking away from these orbs. And the good old Black Flame is useful if someone's trying to backstab you. You know, you just puff them in the face. Or if they're blocking, turtling a lot, you can crack them open with Black Flame and then follow up with your sword. So, it's a little tight on Endurance and Vitality because I needed the 40 Intelligence. But at this level, 18 Vitality should be plenty if you have like a good amount of defense to soak up hits. So she can swap. She's got a variable ring slot. She can use Bellowing Dragon Crest if I want to do more spell damage. She does have enough poise to tank a two-handed greatsword hit, which is good because she's swinging one herself. So if you're going to be swinging slower than a straight sword, you got to be ready to be hit by one. And the sorcerer there's a couple. If you want to be classy, there's a couple of catalysts. This is a nice thing about having 40 int. You have options for what your catalyst looks like. You can also use Beatrice's catalyst if you like that more shaman look, or you can use the Izalith catalyst as well. which is a huge long stick thing, you know, and it just looks hilarious on your back. It's like as big as this doorway, you know, so it's kind of funny to be running around with that thing. Although it is much easier to see where you're at when you have this huge flagpole on your back, you know. They could see you around corners and whatnot, so it definitely increases your visibility, so keep that in mind if you go with Eyes of Lilith. But it is fun to see it on your back there. So I like this build. She doesn't have a shield, you know, she's reliant on rolling and stun locking shit, so it's got a little bit of a flair to it, a little bit of challenge. I like having builds with a bit of challenge, you know. But somehow, I guess because of the greatsword, like, I've done builds like this before, so to me it's a little boring, but it is a pretty competent build, I would say. Also, because it started as a pyromancer, it has 12 strength, so if I wanted to, I could one-hand this Moonlight Spear, which I recommend you get as a backup weapon, just because of the long poke, you know, and you can one-hand it, so if you need to be casting and stabbing, it's just a really nice backup weapon for any Moonlight Greatsword or any sorcerer build. You should be using both of these weapons if you can as a sorcerer. They're both amazing. Moving on. I have another level 40 build that is more for fun. It's one of my favorite builds in the entire game. I try to play it a lot, but unfortunately, very hard to find summons at Send Fortress for whatever reason. Or summoners, I should say. Okay, so this guy is my Knight of Ni. And that's a Monty Python reference. The reason I call him that is because I just imagine using force is like saying "knee, knee." You know, it just makes me laugh. I also have Wrath of the Gods and Great Lightning Spear for dependable range damage. But I've considered taking this guy to New Game Plus and just getting 2 or 3 copies of Wrath. Because the thing is, once you cast Wrath, once people see the first one, they'll try and bait you into using the other 2. So keep that in mind. You really got to mix it up a bit. You got to bring down their guard and get them not to be expecting Wrath, and that's when you pop it off in their face and hit them with it. So if you wanted to just do ridiculous amounts of damage, you could swap this out for the Crown of Dusk. Well, I don't have it. Yeah, the Crown of Dusk increases all spell damage no matter what the source. But I wanted to actually have him look like a Knight of Ni. He's more of a flavor, cosplay, you know, silly, amusing build. So I tried to replicate that look as well as I can with like the black fur on the armor and the horned helmet. Weapon choice. This club really is spectacular because it has high poise damage, bleed damage, and it has the super cool leap attack on the R2. Which makes it easy to close the gap and kind of surprise people. But if you're fighting backstab fishers, which is what mostly you'll see at low level, something faster like a hand axe. Again, I was talking about this earlier, you need a fast weapon. So as they're circling around you to go for that backstab, if you have something quick like this where you can rapidly turn and attack, you can kind of get them to back up off of you, because this will bust the shield open pretty readily, and it can stagger, because it hits for as much poison damage as the club. So I'm really maximizing on my 50 faith here with the divine weapons. The other advantage of divine, it deals magic damage. So if someone's wearing Duskcrown like a pyromancer or a dark beater, I can do more damage to them by using this weapon because they have reduced magic defense. So I got a couple options of weapon, but this build is really quite tight. I cannot fit any bigger weapon than this. I cannot fit a shield. Well, okay, this weighs 4 pounds, so if I go with the hand axe, I can actually equip a heater shield, which is why I have it as a backup. So that gives me a little bit of blocking power if I need it. But you see his vitality is extremely low. His endurance also is unleveled, just because I had to capitalize on the faith for this guy to be able to do a decent amount of damage with Wrath of the Gods without wearing Duskcrown. So he's tons of fun though, because he has this heavy armor on. He's got good defense. You can see that, 323, which is enormous. So despite his low vitality, he's pretty durable. And despite not having a shield, he actually, like, I don't know if it's just skill, but he just, you know, I have an easy time surviving with him is my point. And he's lots of fun, lots of flavor. So you've got 10 build slots. That's enough to let you have a min-max several min-max builds, and also some fun, flavorful builds. So, you know, experiment. And again, force is amazing in this place because you can knock people off ledges with it. I've done that quite a lot. It's always fun to do that to an invader. To just bounce them off things. Cracks me up. Alright, moving on. Sense Fortress is just a really fun place, period. Okay, my level I have 2 of them. So this is my golf champion. Another bit of a silly idea behind this one. But this build is all about using Black Knight weapons. It's got the min-max stats for that, strength 27, dex 18 required to use these weapons, but damage-wise, they scale highly with strength, and 27 strength when two-handing equates to 40, which is the soft cap. So, this thing deals a shitload of damage. This is a fully upgraded build here. You can see R1 weapon is 610, which is enormous, but the reason why it's called Golf Champion, because of the golf swings. 4! I just love sending things flying when I hit them with these Black Knight weapons here. The Greatsword also has the golf swing. Not so much the halberd, but you know, I keep these weapons just for support in case I need something a little quicker, you know, in case I need reach, because depending on what the enemy's using, you're going to want options. So, I have, again, 3 pounds for shield slot, which lets me use all the good stuff. With the extra weight I have right now, it lets me carry this dagger in case, you know, maybe I want to try backstabbing with it, or someone's just circling around me. Because it's hard to counter a fisher with a slow weapon like this. Of course, if I just whip this out and start carping them up, either they're going to parry if they know what they're doing, or they'll panic and roll away. So, always have the ranged option as well, just for the extra bit of damage and the utility that it provides. Very useful. You can easily squeeze in a short bow on most builds because it only weighs half of a pound. But again, the big damage is with the composite bow. So, what does this build have? In addition to beastly damage, it's level 50. I've got a good amount of vitality and endurance, although the endurance is a bit low for this level, I admit. But I just didn't need it because it's a mid-roll build. It's rocking 77 poise, which means I can trade with this Y-hander user, you know, any Ultra Greatsword, and still hit them for my big damage while I'm at it, which I really need with big slow weapons like this. I need to be able to soak up that Ultra Greatsword hit. And it's also left me with 300 some odd defense. This is the... If you're wearing a mask, this setup is the lightest that you can do and still hit that 76 poise mark. Either Guardian or Stone Gauntlets, they both give you the same amount. They just have a difference between magic and fire defense, as you can see there. So it's your option. I happen to think the Guardian Gauntlets look better. Havel armor and the, of course, ugly but very useful because of its low weight, high poise combo, soldier waistcloth. So this combo, with the mask of your choice, you'll be able to hit 76 poise for like the lowest weight possible. So this build, very solid, lot of weapon options, very fun with the Golf Champion theme. It's a bit hilarious for people who actually, you know, get the joke. Alright, moving on to the other level 50 build. This build coming up here is probably the most competitive thing that I have. This is Thick Bottom, which I did videos showcasing leveling her up before, and I took her into New Game Plus, as a matter of fact, because I wanted to double up on casts of Black Flame and Great Combustion, as you can see there. Also, New Game Plus lets you get 2 Pyro Flames without trading. So, what this lets me do is just spam any invader or boss into the ground. You know, sometimes when they see Black Flame or Combustion, they'll try and bait you into casting all 8 of them. But they're not going to expect you to have more than 8, so you can really surprise them by hitting them, you know. And then at that point, they'll probably start to panic and you can just easily finish them off with a few more puffs. She is tight on weight and also stats, which is why she only uses the rapier. But you know what? This is a solid weapon. Low requirements, high critical damage, and it's got a bit of reach to it as well. If you find yourself having trouble connecting, because the R1 actually is deceptively short. It looks longer than it actually is for hitbox. But the R2, that'll give you a little bit more like spear type reach, and it's still quick. So recommend if you're having trouble with R1s, try out the R2. Quite good on that. Still very quick. And so I can backstab fish with this thing, you know, I can do good, reliable damage in melee. I have ridiculous amount of spell casts. I have Fireball for a ranged option, all on 19 attunement. So let's take a look at her stats. She has boatloads of vitality for only level 50, solid amount of endurance, enough to block most things. She's got 33 poise only. However, if I need to, I have this variable ring slot where I can get up to 73 poise, which will let me take Black Flame, everything up to an Ultra Greatsword two-handed, basically. But for the most part, because she's so quick, she's got fast roll, she's got quick weapon, she's not going to need that high amount of poise, you know, like, if you're getting hit by Ultra Greatswords and things while using a weapon this quick, you need to practice more. Because you should be able to get in and out. Like, you're going to get a poke off and then dip out again. So she's got a lot of power, just tremendous power. I can easily tear through Ornstein and Smo at this level. Smough. Right. Also, I could be wearing the Hollow Soldier waistcloth for 2 more poise, but if you look at the poise breakpoints, it doesn't really matter, and she wouldn't be Mrs. Thick Bottom without this thing, because really, it's all about the butt cheek on this particular piece of armor. Crown of Dusk, so you gotta watch out for, you know, magic damage. But it increases pyromancy damage as well. She's got the 3-pound shield slot. Look at all these options. Although, actually, I just remembered I can't actually use Effigy Shield. I didn't notice this for a long time. Effigy Shield has a 16 faith requirement. So, don't forget about that. Otherwise, you will be disappointed. It's a real shame only a faith build can make use of it because it has the highest lightning defense in the game. So, actually, I'm gonna dump it right now so I don't accidentally equip it later on and then wonder, holy shit, what happened? Why couldn't I block anything? So, the other weapon I use on this build, the Bandit Knife, because I figured New Game Plus bosses, they're more resistant to elementals, so split damage is less effective. Well, no, it's more that their defenses are just higher, which is why split damage is less effective. They're still very vulnerable to, you know, full fire damage spells and sorcery and things like that. Moonlight Greatsword is still very effective. But this has the added bleed, which is very effective on many enemies, and it's quick. So with my low stat requirements of only 12 strength, 12 dex, I'm able to use either the rapier if I want to go for backstabs, or if I need to bleed someone out, chaos knife. And again, you want to have, if possible, the lightning and chaos version. That way, in case you go like Lost Izalith, you're going to whip out lightning. Everywhere else, you're pretty much going to use chaos anywhere you can. But if it's like a fire resist area, or you see the enemy cast flash sweat, you're going to whip out the lightning knife. Also, if they notice you're a pyro and they have a variable ring slot, they might equip the firestone plate ring, you know, the fire resist ring. Yeah, in which case you are going to want to swap to lightning. So it's just good to have options. You should always plan to have options. I also have, as you can see here, the ubiquitous composite bow, in case I need a bit of ranged. So if I want to use that to get the extra 1 pound that I need, I'll swap to the heater shield, which is a pound less. That heater shield also incredibly useful to have on a variety of builds because it gives you a little more weight to carry something light, like a bandit knife or a composite bow. Very, very useful tools to have in your arsenal, especially if you plan to go to New Game Plus, something like that. So having options on your build is always a good idea. You should be thinking about other weapons that complement the one that you have. You know, like if you're using a big smashy sword, maybe you also want to have a spear or a rapier for a little added reach or something fast, you know. So just give yourself options so that you're never getting outplayed. Right, so that's that build. Very, very powerful build, easily ready for New Game Plus. Yeah, she tore through New Game Plus pretty easily. I was surprised, in fact. I don't have a level 60 build currently. But I guess if I get super bored with Almond Joy, I'll destroy her and make a 60. So we're getting to the end here. This is my level 70 build. This is for the possibly Anor Londo, but definitely the areas past Anor Londo and even into the Kiln. So we're looking at like Seethe, Four Kings, Lost Izalith, stuff like that. I always forget one of the Lord Souls. I can never remember. Oh well. Anyway, this build I'm quite happy with. This is a dexterity build. Let's take a look at the stats. So you got a decent amount of vitality and endurance for level 70. It could be higher, but the only way you're going to get higher at this level is if you're doing Vid Gouge, like elemental weapons, Chaos Lightning. So I didn't want to do that again. I'm just so sick of you know, using these at low level. It feels like if you want to be competitive, you're kind of stuck using elemental weapons. I'm just tired of it. So this is my dex build. It started out as a warrior, so it's got that higher strength, but she's got just tons of options. So I have currently how much poise? 63, enough to take a black flame. But I can swap this out for Hornet if I want, and I still have 23 poise after that, which is enough to take a one-handed longsword, something like that. Balder sword, right? So it's light on poise for sure, but I also have the option of Woodgrain, Hornet, Leo Ring, because I have like quite a few pokey type weapons. So, but the main thing I like about this build is the versatility. So 3-pound shield slot as usual to get, you know, all the options here that matter. Good amount of poise, good amount of defense, 253. That's a little low, but I mean for fast roll it's actually decent. Got the Mask of the Mother for added HP, which helps compensate for my less than 40 vitality at this level. Weapon though, I have so many options. This is why I love it. So I have the Dark Silver Tracer if I want to like maybe inflict Toxic on a New Game Plus boss, which is also why I have Dung Pie slotted. It's also got the highest crit rating in the game, so if I want to backstab, fish even, I could put Hornet Ring on and just really tear people up with this thing. Then I have the super awesome, super fun Balder Sword, good like general purpose, with the incredible poke that's got such damage on it and such reach. It's really spectacular. Like, you can trade with much bigger weapons using this thing, and it just feels good. Like, you're going to be dealing startling damage to people, especially if you even combo it with Leo Ring. You're just going to be doing oodles of damage, and it's quick as shit. So, I could easily buff this thing, you know, and just start tearing people apart. And it's nice because all my gear is plus 15 non-elemental, so I can buff so many things just to get more damage in. But this is a good, dependable sword. Definitely try out the Balder Sword if you haven't already. Take it to the DLC, stab those chestnut head fucks, the Ulasil residents, whatever they're called. It's a lot of fun. And it has, you know, this really good... It's a very versatile moveset, because you've got your wide slashes that are quick, right? And you've got your long poke, always at the ready. Either one-handed or two-handed, you've got that long spear-like poke. It's so great. So other things I can do. I have just enough weight to equip a 6-pound weapon and a shield, which lets me use my spear and my flamberge. So flamberge is for... If I'm going with the 6-pounder, I'm going to use Grass Crest because I actually have to two-hand it. But that's good. I'll tell you why. If I'm going to use Flamberge, I'm using it because I want to stun lock stuff, which is why you're going to use it two-handed anyway, to get that higher poise damage. And, like, it's a phenomenal greatsword. It scales with dex, it hits for high poise damage, it's decently long, it has bleed on it, which is just kind of gravy, you know. It's not often that you will proc with a weapon this low. Unless you're just able to kind of stun lock the enemy, in which case, yeah, you will. But also the R2 is actually surprisingly useful. It's a wide sweep, you know, and it's got the kind of a weird wonky moveset like that. You can see that weird swinging arc. People have a hard time parrying this thing because it's the only weapon that has this weird swinging thing. Well, that I know of. I'm pretty sure it's the only weapon though. So it's hard to parry, does good damage. If you come up against someone who's trying to parry you and you start doing this shit, they will just get so confused. Like, you'll see them whiff so many parries and just eat that R2 to the face for a ton of damage. So, it's good, it's dependable, But if you do use this, make sure you have the poise to back it up, because again, you're swinging a slower weapon. So I will always use the flamberge with wolf ring. Then I have the Silver Knight Spear, which I will use with Dark Wood Grain, because this thing is all about kiting and outranging. So this has the longest length of any roll, right? You're going to be, unless they have this ring to match you, you're going to be rolling so far away from them, which allows you to quickly turn around and thrust. See, so you can just do this all day, and thrust, and jab, you know? So, I have to use this two-handed, but again, who cares? You know, like, it's just more damage, more reach. It's a good thing to use this, this spear. Really don't know why that happens from time to time. The controller just decides to turn off and get weird on me. Anyway, yeah, so really happy to have the option of using this weapon. Also, the Silver Knight Spear has the Divine. You can see in the bottom left there, that white circle with 110. That's the Divine modifier, which means I can kill skeletons with it and they won't get back up, because the Blessed Weapon just prevents them from getting up. That's one of the perks of using the damn thing. I also have the ridiculous bleeding tool of the Gold Tracer. This will bleed bosses so quick, and players too, if they don't parry you. Like, if they're just giving you a hard time, you just walk up into them and do this shit, and they'll be bleeding in no time, or rolling away panicked, you know? It's quite useful, but you do gotta watch out for parry, because this, if you whip this out and the enemy knows how to parry, they will parry you. This basically is a signal saying, please parry me. But otherwise, it actually hits nearly as hard as the Baldur's Sword. The Baldur's Sword is 384. This thing is 377, so comparable damage, unbuffed that is. And you have the added bleed. So really, it's quite dependable. It's just like the lower reach, you know. But it does attack slightly faster than the Baldur's Sword, only if you're two-handing it. You can see the difference in speed here. Just swinging away right now. Let's try it one-handed. You'll notice it's slower. Much slower. So, really you want to two-hand this if you can, which gives you another reason to throw Grass Crest on your back. I would use this with Poise, because it's easy for someone to hit you while you're just chopping away. So you're probably going to want to go Wolf Ring with this guy. Always have the bow slot handy. The bow I can use with any of my less than 6-pound weapons. So I could use Baldur's Sword with bow behind it. I could even use both tracers with bow behind it on like my shield hand, something like that. So very good, versatile build with tons of options, and options are what keeps a build from getting stale. If your build is locked into using one weapon and the same tactics over and over, it tends to get a little dull. But this is a lot of fun. I really enjoy using it. So, if you want a lot of versatility, try a dex build. And, you know, roll something with... How much strength do you need? At least 11 strength to two-hand something that requires 16 strength. So, 11 strength lets you use both the Flamberge and the Silver Knight Spear two-handed, which is great. That's really how you want to be using them if you're going to use them at all. Moving on to the last build that I have here. This is my level 120 PvP meta build, but really I designed it to co-op in New Game Plus. It also just happens to be, you know, the PvP level in case I ever decide to do that. I'm quite proud of this build. It's got so much power behind it. So I'll explain here. So you can see she's got 35 poise to start with, decent enough to tank smaller things, and she's quick. You know, this weapon, however, is not that quick. So, I need to be careful with this if I'm going up against something that is doing a lot of poise damage. But luckily, I can easily swap this out for Wolf Ring and only losing 20% damage on spells. But let's talk spells. Because I'm a New Game Plus, I have 6 Wrath. I have my dependable ranged damage. And I have 2 buffs. So I have huge point-blank damage and surprise with the, you know, the quick explosion of this. I have the range damage, and I can buff twice. Now, I carry 2 versions of my weapons. I have a Colt, and I have the plain plus 15. So this is for buffing, this is for not buffing, like I'm just making my way through a level.
Usually once I get to the boss or if I get invaded, that's when I swap to the plus 15 for the buff. So really the hand axe though is mainly what I use to capitalize on the buff when I cast it, because it attacks super quick. So you just be chopping away with your strongman's falchion here, doing oodles of damage very quickly, one or two-handed. Not to mention, the hand axe has the poise damage of any regular axe or hammer, which is the same as a greatsword. So, two-handed I'm doing 52 poise damage, one-handed is like 34, something like that. So it's dependable for stun lock, it's dependable for damage and speed. If I need bleed, I have it in the form of the reinforced club, so I can bleed on New Game Plus, just doing even more damage to bosses and things. So it's really a solid build with all these options. And she's a faith build, so she can equip Sanctus, Effigy. I've got all my +3 shields, so she's got enough weight to have poise and also these dependable small weapons, and a shield. I have this Pyro Flame here because, I don't know, just in case I ever need to take Pyromancy. Sometimes it's worth it just to, spam combustion into a boss's face. But let's look at her stats, right? 40 vitality, which is a respectable amount at this level. You don't want to be any less than that. I mean, being more is good, but you don't want to be any less than that. So she's got a dependable 1500 HP, which is decent. 19 attunement. Almost 40 endurance. So almost capped out on that. 27 strength. The reason being, if I two-hand, I'm getting 40 strength, which lets me use the most. If you take a look, even the occult weapons still have a bit of strength scaling. So let's look at how much damage I'm doing. Am I two-handed right now? Yeah. So I'm looking at 325 or 427. Even higher. Look, 503 on the occult Great Club. And that's, like, if I buff this, it's gonna skyrocket. It adds like 300 damage or some shit if I buff this. So can you imagine a hand axe at this speed, 500 damage, hitting like a greatsword? It's just tremendous. It tears bosses new one and invaders. They don't expect it in the least. It's kind of an odd 120 build. You don't really see many like that. So 50 faith to get the most out of all her miracles, 27 strength to get the most out of two-handing these strength weapons, almost capped endurance, decent amount of HP and attunement, solid spell selection, with the range damage, double buff, 6 wog. She is really stacked, And how much defense? 317 defense with this fast roll armor. And if I need more poise, I have it. Just swap out a ring. So, solid build. Highly recommend if you want to try something different. You just got to be aware of your short reach. You got to be aware of when it's time to get more poise. But she has ridiculous damage and good survivability. Quite happy with it. I only wish I didn't make her hair silver. That's the only thing I regret. And that is the end of my builds. So, hopefully that'll give you some ideas of your own, or maybe how to improve some stuff that you already have. If you need help planning a build, actually, yeah, feel free to talk to me if you want to. Message me, be like, hey, I'm trying to do a build like this. Can you give me some recommendations? We can talk about options. We can talk about fashion. A lot of my characters aren't fashion-oriented, but you did see there's a few of the sillier ones that, have a certain look about them, like the Knight of Knee. And, oh yeah, also if you are planning a build, recommend that you go and use a planning website for that. Either Mugen Monkey, Souls Planner, maybe there's another one out there. Definitely recommend Mugen though. Mugen is solid for Souls 1 and Souls 3. It's a little weak on Souls 2. But you don't really need to worry about building in Souls 2 because Souls 2 has no builds. So, anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. So, hope this was helpful. Hope it inspired you to have some more fun in your game and give you an idea of options that you can do to have set builds that are ready to co-op and invade, in certain places over and over and over again, all day, every day. If you can, find people to do it with. The game's a bit slim on population these days. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed and you want to see more, don't forget to follow on Twitch, like and subscribe on YouTube, and don't go hollow. Goodbye.